Welcome back to the channel. My name is Leonard, and as many of you know, I am a practicing dietitian, and today we want to review some common nutritional advice on the internet. Now, there's a lot of nutritional advice all over the internet, whether it be on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, you name it, they have it. But today we're going to be reviewing some local advice here in Malaysia from a personal trainer on not eating certain fruits if you want to be thin. Now, before I start, there is no ill intention to defame or basically bring down a particular individual. The point here is to check whether the advice is legitimate, and for those of you who are watching, whether this advice are good for you and whether you should be following them. If there is a good information, I will say it's good. If there is some questionable information, well, I will try to correct it to the best of scientific evidence. So let's get straight into it, shall we?
Turunkan berat badan, 4 jenis buah ni tolong elakkan.
So she starts off with the video saying that there are 4 fruits that you should avoid. So let's kind of find out what those fruits are.
Yang pertama adalah buah yang dikeringkan. Contohnya macam asam, macam kismis ke. Kandungan air dah tak ada dah dekat dalam buah ni kan. Kita terpaksa makan lebih untuk rasa kenyang tu. Bila makan lebih, of course, terlebih kalori.
I totally disagree with that. Dried fruits are a fantastic pantry item to have around their shelf stable. I think what she's missing here is the fact that you just have to portion out the amount of dried fruits you take. For sure, because there's less water, there's less volume, you can't take the same volumetric quantities. To say that dried fruits will cause you to gain weight because you eat excessively to feel full doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. If you're trying to argue that by eating dried fruits there's no water and hence you don't feel full, well, you can just eat dried fruits and... But I totally disagree. I think dried fruits are definitely a pantry staple that I personally have at all times. And as long as you're wary about the portion amount, you're reading the nutrition information, they serve as a great recovery snack, they serve as a great pre-workout snack. And I don't really see the issue. It's a good source of fruits as well. Not an issue whatsoever. I totally disagree with that. That's not correct information.
Yang kedua, yang kita kena elakkan, buah yang kita perlu elakkan untuk turunkan berat badan ni adalah yogurt berperisa buah. Sebenarnya dia tinggi kandungan gula. Okay, yogurt yang berperisa ni selalunya sangat tinggi kandungan gula. Selalunya 15 gram, 16 gram, macam tu.
So she brought up the fact that in fruit filling based yogurts there are a lot of added sugars, and this is actually correct. Added sugar does cause additional calories, and you know, when you have too much sugar, it also isn't helpful if you're trying to lose weight from a calorie deficit point of view. She also brought up the fact that if you want to have fruit with yogurt, get fresh fruits with Greek yogurt. Those are all great ideas. I would also add dried fruits as well. I think they're perfectly fine. In fact, they're really nice. Dried cranberries, really nice. So no issues there with point number 2. I think those are perfectly valid information.
Ketiga adalah jus buah. Jus buah yang dah siap pun tak digalakkan. Dia pun tinggi kandungan gula dan dia dalam bentuk liquid, betul tak? So dia laju je, rapidly diserap ke dalam badan. So dia akan menyebabkan kandungan gula dalam darah kita naik dengan tinggi. So bila kandungan gula dalam darah naik dengan tinggi, kita akan cepat lapar balik. Berbeza dengan kita kunyah-kunyah. Contohnya kita apple kan, kita kunyah-kunyah apple tu, ada kulit dia, ada isi dia semua tu. So dia akan membuatkan kita kenyang lebih lama. Smoothie tu containing all the skin, the flesh, the pulp, semua memanglah nutrients dia dan fiber dia masih ada di dalam tu. Kita tak tarik keluar kan. Tetapi tak dinafikan makan the whole fruit tu akan menyebabkan kita prevent kita daripada lapar. So dia akan membuatkan kita kenyang lebih lama. Yes, you get the fiber, yes, you get the nutrients, tapi dia tak membantu untuk kenyang lebih lama. Sebab proses kunyah-kunyah tu dia akan hantar signal, okay, dah kenyang.
So the third point that she mentioned here was for fruit juices. And in general, fruit juices, I totally agree with her. Like, fruit juices have been stripped away of a lot of the fiber and a lot of the solid material, which is quite important if you want to feel full, which is true. She then goes on to say when it comes to blended fruits, right, based on an article I think she read from Harvard, that shows that even if it's blended, it's still not as good as eating it as a whole fruit, which again, and as a general rule of thumb, I agree. But here's the thing, for one, we can all agree that fruit juices really isn't the best thing, whether it comes to losing weight or just be healthy in general. But just because on an article by Harvard to say that you won't feel full faster, I don't think you should devoid yourself from taking smoothies if you enjoy taking smoothies. In fact, I'm one of those people. But instead, what you can do is, and this is something I recommend to all my patients and all my clients, is the fact that you can always add protein-based ingredients to ensure that you feel fuller as a snack. So for example, if you're taking a fruit blend, right, consider adding things like yogurt, protein powder. I've seen some people adding silken tofu as well, which I've not tried. But me personally, I like cutting down on the fruits and adding some milk, soy milk, whole milk would also be fine. And it's the protein amount within those products that would actually help you feel fuller way longer. So if you're concerned about feeling full, while yes, eating whole fruits are definitely better, I don't think you should devoid yourself from smoothies, just add some protein-based items. And fruit juices, try to stay away. I definitely agree that it's not the best thing to consume.
And the last one, buah yang kita perlu kurangkan, bukan tak boleh makan terus bila kita nak turunkan berat badan ni, adalah buah yang high GI.
For those of you who are unaware, glycemic index is basically a scale to measure for a fixed amount of food, right? How fast does your blood sugar respond to it? And a higher glycemic index closer to 100, for example, indicates it's a very high responsive food, and the lower it is, the better.
Contoh-contoh buah yang high glycemic index. Contohnya buah yang kuning-kuning lah. Katalah buah mangga.
For a minute, she mentioned that yellow fruits should be avoided. She already mentioned mango, and then she mentioned durian. So I flat out disagree with that statement, because here's the thing. Glycemic index isn't the full picture. You need to look at the glycemic load. So glycemic load is basically taking the glycemic index of a food and multiplying by the amount of food you are actually consuming. So what I'm saying is this: while a certain food item may have a high glycemic index, but if you're just taking like 5 grams of it, it doesn't really matter. But more importantly, right, you can have a low glycemic index food like brown rice, for example, but if you take 2 bowls of brown rice per meal, it's going to be really bad for your glycemic control anyways, because the total glycemic load is going to be a huge amount. Now, when you say that yellow fruits should be avoided, that doesn't make sense to me. And you mentioned durian specifically, and here's the thing. Ice cream has a low glycemic index. So you see, glycemic index is based on how fast your body reacts in terms of sugar response. Now, we all know that from a biological point of view, if the food item in question has fats, that delays gastric emptying or delays the absorption of food, which causes the glycemic spike to be much more slower. Does that mean ice cream is perfectly fine to be consumed then? No, I don't think so. And the case for durian, durian actually has a lower glycemic index than some other fruit because of the fat. So that's wrong information. I think she needs to correct herself on that.
Buah-buah yang high GI ni tidak membantu untuk turunkan berat badan sebab dia tak bagi kenyang lama pun, sekejap je. Okay? So kalau betul-betul nak turun berat badan, ambillah buah yang lower GI. Contohnya buah-buah yang berwarna hijau, yang berwarna anggur pekat.
Now, as a dietitian, as a clinician, if you don't have an endocrine issue like diabetes and you're not consuming enough fruit already, that's not good advice. I still think taking any fruits is fine as long as you're controlling the amount. So for example, if you want to eat durian, that's fine. Eat 4 little pieces, right? Don't go and eat an entire durian by yourself. If you want to eat watermelon, go for it. If you want to eat bananas, take 1 nice Cavendish banana as a pre-workout snack. It's perfectly fine. However, as a general thing, looking at the advice, it's a bit more wonky. I feel like there are some good points, but there are some misinformation still, a bit of inaccuracies, if you will. And bear in mind, sometimes I don't blame her as well. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to transfer information in a very simple and condensed form with correct context online. But definitely in terms of advice score, I would probably rate this at a 5 out of 10. So let me know, are you going to eat all kinds of fruits or are you going to be avoiding durian? If you like this video, like it, share it and subscribe. And let me know in the comments down below if you want me to review anybody else's nutritional advice, and I'll see you next time.